Welcome back to the Next Aid Station podcast. I'm your host, Jake Kilgore. Today, good friend and great runner, Liz Butler, is in studio with us today. We're going to talk DC peaks, we're going to talk 100 milers, 50 milers, and all things running and life with DC Peaks' most recent female winner and course record holder, Liz Butler. Liz, what's up?
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
Okay. Well, amazing to have you in. So we're just getting caught up before we turned everything on to get to know each other a little more in our careers and life. But we met on the trails in 2019 at the Kachinamosa 100K.
Yep.
What do you remember about that day, the race, before you whooped me to the finish line? You spent about 20 or 30 miles with me.
I don't know. I remember you burning me on the downhill. It was hot. I feel like it was a hot day. I do remember winning. I do remember beating you. But I don't really remember a ton of that race. I don't remember it being easy. I just remember it being like hot. I remember meeting you. I remember you burning me on the downhill, but then I won.
Yeah. Yes, you did. You whooped me. Yeah, you'd catch me on the climbs, and I would move real good on the downhills, and then eventually, it got really hot, really exposed, and then I just never saw you again. And I'm like, she's gonna win this race, dude. She's gonna win, and you won your division, female, all that. I think you were third overall, roughly. I don't know where I came in, top 10 or something. That was my first 100K, and I remember talking to you on the course, going, "Have you ever ran a 100K before?" And you had mentioned Tusher's 100K, and that was in my head for years, like, because you talked about how much you loved that mountain range,
Yeah.
and I was like, I gotta race Tusher's, which I finally got the chance to do that last year.
Yep.
And
Saw you
there I am on an out and back, and I'm like, wait, what, Liz? What do you? Of course, you were ahead of me around mile 40 or 50 or whatever it was. So, but Tusher's, those are some of your favorite training and racing grounds, no?
Yes. I mean, I love climbing. So Tusher's is a great race for climbing. It's a beautiful part of the state that you don't really go to unless you run that race. I honestly didn't even know it existed until I ran that race. And so I'm not surprised I raved about it in 2019 because I absolutely love it. I mean, I'm sure I'll go back again at some point.
Yeah, so 2022, we both raced Tusher's 100K. You did phenomenal. We are very similar paced, run the same. Eventually, you whoop me and end up beating me. I think I got you only one time. We've raced probably 4 or 5 times together.
Yep.
I've only beat you once, and that was due to some stomach issues you had. You were definitely stronger and faster than me, but that was shortly after we met each other in the 2019 Tushers. It was 2019 Wasatch, which was my first 100.
Mine too.
It was yours as well.
Yep.
So yeah, I remember you. I didn't see you for like 20 miles.
Yeah, we ran the start of that race together. I remember seeing you up to a little bit before, after Big Mountain,
Yes.
where it starts getting super hot.
Yep.
And then I saw you again somewhere in the middle of the night when I was dying.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we got to Big Mountain, and I remember you looking back. Which is like, for the listeners, that's like mile 30, 32, something like that. And you were like, "All right, Jake, let's go. I'm taking off." And I was like, I'll catch up, okay. And I never saw you for like 40 miles. And then I came down this stretch on the backside, somewhere around mile 75, and you and your pacer were just off to the side, 75, 80 miles in, and you were not doing well.
No, I was not doing well.
What?
I was on the struggle bus. Just like severe stomach issues that probably started shortly after I left you. So probably around like mile 40, 50, and maybe a little after Lambs. Maybe it was more like 50. Just like couldn't really keep food down at all for the rest of the race, to the point where I like basically just wasn't eating because I just couldn't keep anything in.
So I've noticed that heat has a big play on gastrointestinal, like not being able to hold things down. What have you learned about really just managing that in long races?
I try to be like really cognizant of how much I'm drinking. I probably err on the side of almost drinking too much, but I drink a lot of electrolytes just so I don't overwhelm myself with water. I've ran a lot of races in the heat. and I've gotten pretty good at just learning to deal with it. So I don't even know if it was the heat that was making me sick in Wasatch or if it was something else, because I've gotten pretty good at just, being able to make sure that I'm consistently drinking. I carry more water than I need for sure because I'm so paranoid about not having enough.
Have you had stomach issues since then that you've managed or gotten through, or?
Nothing as severe as that. I'm lactose intolerant, so I kind of like to say that my resting state is having an upset stomach because I can't stop myself from eating dairy, even though I can't digest it. There's like no way I'm gonna stop eating ice cream, so I just live with it. But no, nothing. I've never had anything as severe as Wasatch since then. So I think I'm just kind of maybe just lucky in that way. And I try to kind of eat the same things during a race. Sometimes certain things sound good and certain things don't, so it's never quite the same. Or I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try this new goo because why not? But I don't. I also don't eat a lot when I'm training. I really only eat during races. So when I'm training, I usually just run on an empty stomach.
Even when you're on a 4 or 5 hour training run?
Yeah, maybe I'll take like a bar or something, but it's not like I don't practice like I play.
Yeah, and I do the same thing. I don't eat a ton when I'm training. 3, 4, 5 hour runs, I'll take maybe one goo and maybe one like honeycomb kind of thing.
Yeah.
A couple hundred calories, 200-300 calories. But the last couple races I've really had like trouble keeping food down. And it's kind of become this thing the last couple races. I'm like, dude, I got to change something up. So I'm asking anyone I talk to, like, how did you fix it? Did you solve it? Was it a one-time thing?
No, I mean, I always eat more. I mean, I'm sure everyone does at the beginning of a race than I do at the end. And I try to do enough that if things go south and I have to kind of stop eating and just live off of liquid calories, that I'm not going to pay for it too much. And the last time I ran Wasatch, my stomach didn't feel great after probably Brighton. And I didn't eat a whole lot, but I ate so much in the beginning that it was fine. I could live off the calories that I had ate. And I think some of that too comes from training without food. I'm just sort of used to running a little bit on empty. And so I think I can survive a little bit on empty for a while without it being, a major consequence if I can't eat later in the race.
Yeah. So staying on the nutrition, staying on the really the electrolytes and the hydration, and then just minimal eating for you.
Yep.
That also, I've noticed also, you're very quick in and out of aid stations. And that probably plays a role. If you're not sitting down and eating a bunch of food, you're just rolling.
Yeah, I like to be in and out quick if I can be. Unless things are going wrong, yeah, I'm like 1 or 2 minutes, get me in and out.
Yeah, so if anyone looking Liz Butler up on Ultra Sign Up, you'll see that you're, I'm not going to say a deadlock, but like you're going to be near podium, on podium. Your last few races would be Wyoming Range 100, Wasatch 100, Ouray 100. Those in the last, in 2022 and then 2023 with Ouray, but those are incredibly tough hundreds. Like pile on the vert, 30 to 40,000 feet of climbing in a race, and you're leading those races. You're first, second, third in those races. What is it about the climbing events that just that attract you?
I love the climb. It's where I'm strongest. It's where I can separate myself. In DC Peaks, I was like, I could really use one more climb to like just really put some distance between me and second. I don't know why. I spend a lot of time summiting peaks with my dogs, and so I think because that's how I spend most of my time, I've just gotten really good at climbing. I'm a much better climber than descender. So I'm drawn to those races. I like a challenge. I want to suffer a bit out there, and so I kind of naturally seek that stuff out.
Yeah, and it shows because you're attracted to it. You're so strong, so good at it. It is fun to watch. So let's talk DC Peaks.
Yeah.
I've been bugging you for a year or two, and you signed up like a week
Sunday night.
Yeah, you and Adam Loomis actually. Adam Loomis, who won the men's and set the course record, signed up on Sunday. You did the same thing. Why the last minute? What were you waiting for? What were you watching for? Were you paying attention to your body or a lingering injury? Why the last minute sign up?
Oh, So, I only ran one race this summer. I usually run a few, but I hurt myself in June doing some aggressive kick jumps at a wedding I attended. Just really like to dance. And so I screwed up my back. And so I ended up bailing on all of my training races that I had planned to run, but still I wasn't going to bail on Ure. So that's the only race I ran all summer. And when I talked to you, you were like, want to be on the YouTube or run the race? I was like, maybe I could do a second race. I didn't like train for it, but I run all the time. So I didn't feel like it wasn't something I couldn't finish. But it kind of took me to Sunday to figure out which one am I going to do. I just got back from vacation too, so I wasn't like super into race mode, but kind of wanted one more competition.
And I'm sure you looked at the weather and you're like, dude, 70 and sunny in the fall. I think I just need to go do it.
If the weather was going to be bad, I still would have done it. I like bad weather. I do like to, when it's snowing, when it's raining, I love to get out there.
So fun. I feel like in the rain or the snow, I feel like you can run forever.
Yeah.
I don't need to carry water. I can just go.
Right. As long as you have good gear, there's no bad weather.
Yeah. So I gave you the old option close, as you could notice in the text. And I was like, do you want to be on the live stream? Or do you want to race?
Yeah.
There was no like,
you're not going to be involved with this in some way. Yeah.
You're doing something at our race.
I saw what you did there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad you chose to race because I would never like stop bugging you every October.
I wouldn't feel, if I know you and you like develop this race and you put on this whole thing, I wouldn't feel good about myself if I never just like gave it a go. So I'm glad I did it.
Well, thank you. Mick and I were ecstatic Sunday when Adam signed up. We're like, we know who's going to win the men's. And then you signed up and we're like, we know who's going to win the women's. This is awesome. And then you ended up placing like 5th overall.
Mm-hmm.
So your time was incredibly fast. And then I told this story at the finish line, but I get asked all the time, friends or family, how fast would you run DC Peaks, Jake? I'm like, I don't know. And then and I'm like, probably like 10 and a half hours. And then when I saw your time at 10:08, I'm like, yeah, probably about 10 and a half, just after Liz. So I think I
don't know. You know these trails. I don't know these trails. So I think, I could do it a second time, probably a little bit faster. I bet you would be a little bit faster.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So let's talk DC Peaks.
Yeah.
These were new trails for you. You don't,
yeah.
You live pretty close, but you don't come to this
south.
part of the state.
Yeah. If I run in Davis County, I run like Ben Lomond, Lewis Peak, because like I said, I like to go to the top of things. But there's plenty of stuff down here I could go to the top of. I don't know why I haven't explored here. Or I run south. I like to run in American Fork Canyon or Mill Creek, or I go to Park City, I go to the Uintas. So for whatever reason, this has kind of just been a flyover zone for me. Mm-hmm. So I was psyched to check out these trails. The only part of the course I've been on is whatever is the same as Wasatch. So there's a couple places where I'm like, I've been here before. This is familiar, but
yeah. So that section would be around mile 12 to 14
up by like Farmington Peaks.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, you're there by Francis Peak.
Oh, Francis Peak.
You pass the Francis Peak towers. You start hitting that downhill, and then ours goes straight, and it goes to what we call the Y, which splits off to Bountiful. But instead of going down that steep part, you just take a little left. You probably saw that little trail there.
Yep.
So so just that section is the only thing you've ran in our whole.
Yep.
So what was your first impression of, let's say, the first 10, 15 miles of that new trail, Great Western Trail, and all of that?
It was a good climb. I liked the climbing. It was beautiful. I mean, it was a beautiful day for a race with the fresh snow out there. The views were spectacular. I liked being able to see off the backside. I see the Salt Lake kind of all the time where I live, so it was cool to see off the backside into kind of places that I've never been before. Just a really nice, even kind of a very runnable course, which is hard. It's hard when you can run the whole thing. Yeah.
I have heard that a few times. Once you get past the first climb, I mean, it's 6,000 feet of climbing in the first 12 miles-ish. After that, you somehow accumulate 5,000 miles of climb, but very runnable for a lot of runners.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I ran the whole thing after the first climb. And I ran a lot of the first climb, not fast, but I was, making a running motion anyway. Yeah. Until it got too steep and then I had to walk. But after that first climb, it was very runnable.
So, what is something that surprised you about the course that maybe you overlooked when you studied the elevation or the terrain? Is there something that was like, dude, I did not really see that coming?
Um, wait, one, I think you're presupposing that I studied the terrain.
You
I did look at like the elevation
you at least
profile,
that's
and I
yeah.
watched your course preview on social media, but that's really like the extent of my research.
Okay.
Um, I think I was surprised by like the rolling hills on the shoreline trail.
All
Um,
that Mueller Park stuff.
yeah. Uh, it's hard. I thought that was the hardest part of the course for me anyway. It wasn't up and it wasn't down. It was just kind of like slowly one direction and then the other in the heat. And so,
That is a very similar answer to other people. They were like, because I think on a course map or elevation, it appears downhill
yeah, you're
or
like,
flat
this
or like
part should be
very
more chill than it
should
actually
be more
feels.
runnable, but you don't factor in that west facing sun that's hitting you on the west exposure. But you also have the undulations there, like the ups and downs. There's a up, 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 and then a little bit down, then up. So
Yeah.
it is deceptively difficult.
Yeah. And it's late in the race at that point, and you're like, any kind of up, you're like,
But it's that grade where you're like, I feel like I should be running this.
right. Yeah.
And so you force yourself to run it.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. That is a perfect description of what we've heard about that section of the course. So, what is next for you? This winter, this next summer? What's on the race calendar?
So I realized I lied to you when I said that I wasn't signed up for anything at the end of the race. I did sign up for running up for air,
Oh yeah.
up Grandeur Peak. I've never done it before, so I signed up for the 24-hour because
Yeah.
why not? So that's in February.
You will crush the climbing for sure.
I'm looking forward to a winter race. I've never done one.
Okay.
And then other than that, I'll probably throw myself into the Hard Rock lottery.
I signed up 2 days ago.
I haven't done it, but I will.
Get in there, dude.
I'll get in there. I don't know if it matters if you get in on the first day or the last day.
Yeah.
And then I will. I'm sure I'm gonna enter the Wasatch Lottery. So I entered it last year. I didn't get in, and so I have 2 tickets automatically. And then I swept the last 23-ish miles of the course this year, so I get an extra ticket for volunteering.
Okay.
So I have 3 tickets. So if I don't get in with 3 tickets, I basically have the worst luck in history. So
yeah, with the way Wasatch is drawing out, I mean, people are drawing out year after year all the time. I think it's quite, I don't know if it's diluted is the right word, but there's a high chance of pulling out these days.
yeah, so I think I'm gonna do that again.
So you do have what I would consider some unfinished business at
I
Wasatch.
feel that way.
What happened? So anyone listening, 2022, you were leading. I don't know if you were on course record pace, but you were on a screaming course pace, and then injury, something happened. You ended up finishing second, which is respectable by 99% of all runners. But for you, you're like, no. I got unfinished business.
Well, it's just frustrating when everything is going well except for one thing that you can't fix. So my ankle started really hurting me right as I was coming to Big Mountain, and I thought it was just my shoe. I was like, I think it's just my shoe bothering me. Stop multiple times and like adjust my shoe and try to loosen my shoe, and kept telling myself I have another pair of shoes at Brighton. If I can just get to Brighton, change my shoes, it's gonna be great. Wasn't the shoes. So I screwed up my ankle. I don't know what I did, but when I finished that race, my ankle was like my whole shin was purple. I don't know if it was ligament or tendon damage, whatever it was. I stayed off of it for a while. I didn't run for a while after Wasatch, but yeah, it sucked. Like everything felt great. I didn't feel like I was pushing too hard. I was eating well, but the pain just got so bad. And then that after you leave Brighton and come up and drop down the other side and that steep down, that was just like shooting pain every step, like nothing I could do. And like the woman who won passed me at like mile 90. I just had to let her go. I'm like, I can't catch you. Just held on and finished it, but super frustrating to have what I consider a good time and know I could have had such a much better time.
So. How have you I don't want to say dealt with that, but how have you managed and processed that over the last 12 months? I mean, Eddie, that type of stuff eats at me. I don't know if it does you, but like, how
Yeah.
have you processed that?
I don't know if I have. Um, I wasn't even going to like pay attention to the race this year. I was so frustrated when I didn't get in the lottery because I'm over 40 and I feel like my clock to run 100s is ticking, not to like finish them, but to finish them well. So I was like, well, I've lost a year of my life. So I wasn't even going to pay attention in the race, but then I have a friend, Becca, who actually won Wasatch back in, I think it was 2021. She signed up to be a sweeper and she's like, want to sweep with me? So I decided to pay attention to the race, and it actually helped. That it was helpful to be there in a fun capacity to see the back half of the race in the daylight, which um, that helped me kind of get over what happened. I was like, look at this fun environment. Look at these people at the back of the pack who are like having a blast, just so amped to just get it done. They've spent more time on this course than anyone, and they are like still in great spirits. They kind of put it in perspective for me. Like I had a great race. I got it done. It wasn't everything I wanted to be, but whatever. I shouldn't, I don't need to feel bad about it. I toughed it out. I got it done. And ultimately, like, the reason you sign up for any race, in my mind, is to finish. Like, it's the feeling of finishing. And the feeling of finishing feels great whether you win the race or whether you come in last. You feel a sense of accomplishment no matter where you finish, I think. So,
I love that. That is so true. And sometimes our competitiveness gets the better of us, and we overlook the true accomplishment of running a freaking 100 miles
yeah.
with 20,000 or plus feet of vert or whatever. And like the fact that you finish is sometimes you overlook that because it just becomes like routine. It's the world we live in, it's all the people we associate with. But for 99% of the world, they're like, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably more than 99%. Um, and I think it's like sort of for me, it can sometimes be hard to keep that perspective. I'm a competitive person. I have a competitive personality. And so I want to push myself. And so it can be frustrating when things go wrong and you feel like you could have done more. But you also have to take into account that so many things can go wrong, but also if not all of them went wrong, how many things went right? Like for 100 miles, how many things went right and you did right and you kept, like getting through each moment and getting it done. I don't like Ure this year. That was the hardest race I've ever run in my life. I spent 40 hours on that course. I've never spent that much time on a course, and I learned way more about myself in that race than I've learned in any other race because of the struggle that was the last 25 miles of that race for me. There was a moment where I just like sat in a waterfall. It's like I have enough time. Like I have enough time to finish this race. I'm going to finish it because one, if I don't finish it, then I've got to come back here and finish it. And I want to at least have the choice, right? Like if I come back, I want it to be on my own terms, not because I have unfinished business. And two, like I'm in pain. My legs aren't really working, but they're working well enough that I can get it done. So it doesn't, and it didn't matter like what place I came in at that point. It was just like, this is a hard race and like, I'm going to finish it and it's going to suck, but like, I've got the time. Let's do it. So
Stay out here and keep grinding.
yeah.
Now, you finished second. You were 12th overall. Now, were you leading that race?
Yeah. I mean, I was leading that race at times overall, like for the men and the women, in the first, 20-ish miles. And I felt good. I didn't feel like I was pushing too hard, but I also didn't run any races between Wasatch of 2022 and Ure of 2023. So I just didn't have, the right amount of wear and tear on my legs, I think, that a training race gives you. And like I said, I don't practice like I play. I run a lot harder in a race than I run in my day-to-day. So I just didn't have the wear and tear I think I needed on my quads specifically. And so like mile 75, I was still in first for the women. I think I was third overall at that point, but I knew things were not going well.
You knew it was already coming apart. The
Yeah.
wheels were coming off.
There's still a lot of climbing left, and it was like 90 degrees in Uray. It was like insanely hot at a high elevation, and you still have, I want to say, like 14,000 feet of climbing left at that point.
Oh my goodness. And Uray, part of that Uray course is hard rock, no? Or is none of it?
I don't. Oh, a
'Cause
little bit,
Uray-
because Hard Rock does come into
Because hard rock has a
Uray.
Uray aid
yeah,
station.
and that's like really the only part. So like most of that course is totally different from Hard Rock, but yes, there is a small section that does overlap.
But it's 40,000 descent and vert.
Yeah, it's a little over. I think it's like 42 up, 42 down.
Is it? Oh my goodness.
And it's the biggest, like, just screw with your mind, because a lot of it is like go up, over and down something, turn around, come up, over and down. So like
Out and backs with ascent and descent.
you know.
You're like, I don't want to come back up.
Yeah.
Go back up that or back down that.
Yeah. Or there's this part, there's the Ironton loop, and you do this loop in Ironton. I think it's like 10 miles, 12 miles. And then you turn around and you do the whole loop again the other way. It's just, yeah, brutal.
So,
and it's not a flat loop. It's not a flat
no, nothing is flat about a 42,000.
No,
foot
just
course.
to fit that much elevation in, like these climbs are not, they're not at a low grade, you know, like they've got to be high grade to fit that much climbing into that many miles. So
All that stuff is 1,000 feet per mile. Like, you're not running any of that ever,
just
even early in the
brutal.
race.
It's
It's all
first time,
power hike.
first race I've ever used poles.
Yeah.
They
yeah,
saved my life.
Yeah, you never use poles. Is that the
No.
only time you didn't use them at Wyoming Range? Because that's like
Nope.
32,000 feet, right?
Nope, didn't use them at Wyoming. I didn't even own them until 2 weeks before Uray, and I was
I
like,
should buy these.
should probably buy these and like run with them at least once before the race.
Mhm.
So yeah, but they saved me, because once my quad stopped working, like, and I couldn't engage my quads on the like steep loose down, like I was using my arms so much. So lifesaver.
Yeah, I have noticed that in the super vert intense courses, the downhill on the poles is like for brakes is probably more helpful than the actual climbing.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so you mentioned something about just finishing these races and not forgetting why you're out there and pushing through those last 25 miles of difficult courses and terrain. This being the next Aid Station podcast, that is very much the mentality that we have. You know, my family has this next Aid Station mentality. I do. My business does. You know, people around me. I feel like most ultra runners have that mentality in their life or their family and things. Is that something that you've openly talked about, or is that just something that you use when ultra running?
I don't know if I've openly talked about it, but it's definitely been like how I've had to like deal with things in my life. Both of my parents died almost 10 years ago, 5 days apart from each other. And it was like not in an untraumatic fashion. I don't know if there's a way for it to happen in a non-traumatic fashion, to be honest, but I mean, this was like pretty traumatic, and just getting through grief like that, you can't think about like what's your life going to be like in 2 years or 4 years or whatever. You've got to like take that stuff one day at a time, you know, and just like it's not going to be linear progress. And I think a lot of that's like a race. Like you're not going to like feel great and then feel terrible, you know, like it's up and down, up and down, up and down. And getting through like grief is really similar to like getting through a race. Like you've just got to take stuff in incremental steps, because if you look at the big picture, you'll just feel overwhelmed and you'll never get it done. You'll never get through it, and you'll just like sit in it. So you gotta like baby steps.
I feel like a lot of ultra runners have used that mentality, the next aid station mentality, to get through grief and addiction, or just overcoming, they lost a job or their business failed, whatever it was, just difficult things. Are other people processing that who aren't trail running? Because we're always looking for more and more trail runners, because I think they're the greatest people in the world.
Yeah, I think people probably do it without thinking about it, you know, like in the aid station way. I think people are always trying to think like, how can I break this off into manageable pieces, or how can I set small attainable goals without overwhelming myself with like the big thing that I'm trying to accomplish here. Even in litigation, even at work, right? Like you get a case and you know where you want to get with it, but you can't get there immediately, and you've got to take these incremental strategic steps along the way to try to accomplish this bigger goal. And so it's like lawyers do it all the time without thinking about it, and most of them are not trail runners, though a
Yeah.
lot of them are.
Yeah, even if it's, you use, if you're a litigating attorney, or doctors are like, okay, I need to perform this surgery, and then there's all these steps to get there,
Mm-hmm.
and so it is definitely a process. It's like a math equation. You've got to solve and get to the end, or read a book. You read a chapter at a time.
Yep.
But how for you? You mentioned your parents both passing away within 5 days of each other. That were you trail running at that time? Did trail running and was that therapeutic at all for you? Was that something that helped you process that?
Yeah, I'm running for sure was. I wasn't doing I was a road runner before I was a trail runner. I ran road marathons. And I had just started getting into trail running. I was doing like the Triple Trail Challenge in Park City that's got like the Mid-Mountain Marathon and Jupiter Peak and a couple other things. And I think I first did that, around that time, maybe a little bit before then. But when I was like at home dealing with a crisis, like I was, out on the road every morning, like running, trying to process things. It's my time to think. And I think I've tried to really protect that even to this day. It's like why I didn't own a running watch until 2 years ago, why I don't record my stuff on Strava. It's because that's my time to like just process and deal and be outside and like enjoy nature for what it is, and like whatever, be with my dogs. And I don't want to make it more than that, because I am a competitive person. If I focus on it too much, it's going to change the nature of it. It's not going to be this like therapeutic, enjoyable experience. It's going to be like something else where I'm so concerned with all the rubrics and whatever. And so yeah, definitely running in any sense has always been kind of like or has for a long time been like a coping mechanism for me, for sure.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think there's a lot of that in our ultra community, which makes it so beautiful. But I think what I heard you say is you don't really have Strava. You don't use it. You don't record stuff on a watch, really. Your Instagram is pretty clean of that. Like you don't post races and all this stuff about races. And I think that you found something beautiful in the sport, which is like the serenity and the peace and the beautiful part of being in the mountains. And if you dive into the Strava and the stats and the recording and the records, you probably lose that.
Exactly. And I'll get like obsessive about it. Like I just don't need to, I don't need to make it like the rest of my life. It's supposed to be the escape. And I want to like protect that. And sometimes to a fault, probably to my own talent as a runner. Like it probably is detrimental to my own talent as a runner. And I'm okay with that because that's not why I'm doing it. Like I like the races. I like to like get out my competitive juices, but that's not the reason for it. That's just like another form of it. And so
the podium finishes are a byproduct of you just loving the outdoors and the therapy that comes with it.
that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is like, that's beautiful, and that's awesome. So someone listening to the podcast, listening to this right now, is like, okay, well then how do you track your miles and your vert? How do you track like your training blocks?
I don't know what a training block is. I've never done a hill repeat in my life. Like I don't keep track of how fast I go. Like I have routes that I like to go on. There are places I like to go. There's things I want to explore. I'll look up something on All Trails, like a different peak to get to the top of, but I just don't run that way. And like I said, like I think I could probably be a better runner if I did. Like if I trained in a smart way, or like paid attention to mileage and did like more mileage and less mileage at certain times, I could be a better runner for sure. But ultimately at the end of the day, that's like I'm 41 years old. I'm not going to be in the friggin' Olympics. Like, it doesn't matter, like this is fine. Like, I'm doing it because I just like love to be on a ridge line at the sunrise, like that's why I'm doing it. And I do it like every day because I know I'm going to feel a lot better about the rest of my day if I have that like peaceful moment in the morning. So yeah, I
Dude,
don't
I love that
know.
so much because you hear it all the time. I got to get out and get my 10 miles in. I have to do 80 miles this week. I have to do this because I'm preparing for this 100-miler that's next month. You never think about that.
I never want it to be a chore. Like I always want it to be something I enjoy. So, and even even when my dogs are like, we need a rest, like I usually go out by myself. I'm like, okay, great. I'll go to Watershed today. I don't have to go somewhere where the dogs can go.
Mhm.
I just love it. I just love to be outdoors. Even, and you take a lot of pressure off yourself if you don't. I'm not worried about how fast I'm going. So whatever. If I'm running and I feel like screw it, I feel like walking for a little bit, I will. Like that's not the point of it for me. And that's not to say that like there's anything wrong with taking it seriously and wanting to push yourself to be the best you can in the sport. I totally get that too. It's just not why I do it.
And everyone has their why. And if you find your why, you're already ahead. You're already winning. Like most people go throughout life or even a career or in athletics, and they really don't have a why. And some people's why is I want to finish a race in this time. I want to qualify for Boston. I want to whatever. And you have yours. And I think that's so commendable. I love that. I wish I had more of that. I get so competitive with myself that I want to know mileage, vert, times, all this stuff. And you're right. Doesn't matter if you finish first, second, third, or 50th. No one's paying you,
Yeah.
to finish in that place.
No.
Sponsors or anything cool. Even if they were, it'd be whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is cool. I hope that people take that and be like, oh, like relax a little bit and just enjoy the ride. Truly enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, I always think like every time I get to spend a day running a race, like how lucky am I? Like I get to spend this whole day out here like putting myself through this fun challenge where people are like feeding me snacks along the way and like seeing beautiful views on new trails, and it's like I feel really lucky to like have the luxury to be able to do that for a day. So
It's very true. And if we get hung up in our own competitiveness or the numbers, we'd probably lose sight of that thought right there of just being grateful for the opportunity for good health and trails and all that we get.
absolutely, yeah, I think
So rounding out the podcast, we're gonna close with some questions.
so.
And I want for my own personal selfish reasons and for Mix, as the winner and course record holder of DC Peaks, answer these as they relate to DC Peaks.
Okay.
Okay. What is one thing that DC Peaks did well that they should continue doing each year?
I love like the social media stuff, the drones, like that stuff was cool. I haven't seen that stuff in a race before. Like I said to you, when I felt like I was like in UTMB out there, right? Like you feel like a little celebrity. It's just cool to see all that stuff going on, and also like all the social media like leading up to and post race. I don't think I've ever ran in a race that's been so well kind of publicized before and in such like a kind of thoughtful way. So I would say keep that stuff up. That's awesome. I think it's really unique, especially in ultra running. I think maybe you see it more with like road races, but it's really cool.
Love it. High five to my guy Steven over here for that one. That's awesome. Okay. What is one thing that maybe we didn't have that we should start doing?
I don't think you had porta potties at the starting line. It wasn't that big of a deal. There were 2 bathrooms, but I saw that bus roll up and I was like, I need to get in line before those people get off that bus and get in line. So I would say more bathrooms.
Great feedback because we had more starters than ever. So
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
that came into play.
Yeah.
Love that feedback. Okay. What's one thing that you didn't really love that we should stop doing at DC Peaks?
Stop doing. Um. Huh. What if I said something you should do more of is add more vert to the course?
Of course you would say that, yes. And I think we would both agree. Yes. Yes.
No, there's nothing I would stop doing. I mean, I thought the aid stations were great. Good like finish line feels, like a good like party feel at the finish line. Great volunteers. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are
Maybe
so...
take out the zigzag downhill.
Take it out?
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it is gnarly. It beats you up. It is beautiful up top, and it gets gnarly.
When I survived that, I was like, okay, hardest part of the race is over for me.
Yeah.
Like technical downhill.
Yep, it's tough. Yeah, especially for someone who doesn't love the downhill, right? Yeah. So we're thrilled you came and raced DC Peaks and absolutely represented it well. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I mean, this is... I'm going to keep following everything you're doing, and I love it. I love that we met each other on the course, and we happen to see each other. One of these times in our later 40s, maybe I'll beat you in a race.
I'm sure you will.
You need to get older so I can, and I have to stay young somehow. I don't know how that would happen, but we'll keep at it. Again, thank you so much for coming on. I want to apologize to our good friend Jeff Probst at Survivor. He was unable to join us today, but one day I'll have him on. But today, it is Liz Butler. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Jake.